This week, Charlotte gives us the rundown of new food at the stadium, plus two other feel good stories about the team. And I interview a member of the fantasy football community to talk Trey McBride. Let's get into it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh.
Murray heaves it downfield. It is. Oh, it's caught. It is caught. DeAndre Hopkins. Miraculous. It's Murray magic.
The sickest Arizona Cardinals podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome to the sickest Arizona Cardinals podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Singh, and today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. Charlotte will be joining us to talk about some feel-good stories around the state. I'm also interviewing Josh Hudson from Club Fantasy Football and hearing his take on Trey McBride versus Mark Andrews in the fantasy football space. So let's see how that goes. There's another little segment I want to start doing. I texted my good friend Donnie Druin, and he was on board, I think. I don't know if I'm going to call it text from Donnie, text from the field, text from the beat. We got the beat. That kind of sounds pretty good. We got the beat. But let's go ahead and start with that, shall we? I texted Donnie. First, I asked him, hey, I'm thinking about doing a new segment called Text from Donnie. What do you think? And then he laughed and said for a small fee, but he's just kidding. He has to be just kidding. Anyway, I ended up texting him later in the day and said, hey, text from Donnie. Any important updates from camp? And here's what we've got. Some important updates from camp. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to play in Saturday's game. What? We're going to get to see him in action in the Saturday preseason game. What else? Amari DeMarcado injury, not serious. Thank goodness. Third point, Max Melton will be in practice today. I'm recording this on Thursday. And Donnie brought this news to me straight from Jonathan Gannon's press conference. So you may have already seen the news on Twitter, but it's kind of fun getting an inside look from a friend who is indeed on the inside. Charlotte, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. It is the first week of school for both my boys, so I am very happy to have my house back so I can work in quiet and peace.
I bet it's almost like you're an empty nester for a half second.
For a half second.
Well, we are trying something new this week, a segment. We're going to play on your strengths as a PR professional in the Phoenix area. This new segment, the Positivity Playbook with Shar. What do you guys think of that title? I think it's a good title. What do you think?
I like it. I like it.
it.
I mean,
You're very positive.
We're open to suggestions, but I thought Positivity Playbook sounds pretty good.
I like it too. The Positivity Playbook, where you give us the rundown on the latest good news in the Valley, maybe even just any news. But you put your Shar spin on it, which is why we have you here on the show. So you're going to give us basically 1 to 3 stories a week that you've come across and tell us about them. That's about it, right?
I love it. Well, I'm ready to go. How about you?
Let's do it. Story number 1. Where do you want to start? Stadium food?
Yes, stadium food. We all know that these big sports teams love to unveil their cool new foods that they're going to be offering. It always makes great TV. Kudos to their PR team. So if you haven't already heard, the Cardinals are unveiling this cotton candy burrito. And it is hilarious because I've heard chatter on the radio, even amongst my friends and my husband. People are like, what the heck? And first of all, let me tell you, there's two things that you need to know about this. One, this burrito is cotton candy that is wrapped up, and in the middle is a bunch of candy like M&Ms and sprinkles, and it's like sweetness sugar overload. I have actually had a dessert very similar to this at Jake's Unlimited in Mesa, because they have a
Oh,
big like ice cream area there where they have some extreme desserts. And what they had there were cotton candy tacos. And I got to tell you, they're almost exactly like this burrito, but without the ice cream that Amazing Jake's or Jake's Unlimited has. So I have kind of had it. It's definitely a lot of sweetness. I don't think many people could completely finish it.
right.
It's definitely worthy of purchasing and at least sharing with some folks and having a bite. But the sad news is, unless you're in the club level, you don't get to eat it. And I just learned this when I was looking to figure out what section it was going to be in, because our season ticket holder seats are at 136. So I usually kind of navigate in that area. Well, I discovered that it's only in the club level. And
Oh
in fact,
boy.
it is in sections 222 and 247. So if you want to try it, you got to get on the club level.
Oh,
Um,
that's kind of a bummer because I
yeah,
really was thinking I at least want to bite just to
I
say
want to
I did
bite.
it.
It's a good photo op,
Yeah.
but the good news is there's lots of new stuff that they're offering for us common folk. Um, I am absolutely for sure gonna try the chicken and waffle sandwich. They've got that near me. It's section 102, 127, 129, 408, and 420. There's flaming hot Cheeto chicken tenders. Those have got to be good. My boys are gonna love that because they're crazy about their hot chips. For you health food people, they've got a nutty Asian salad.
Mm.
There's a meatball hoagie on a stick. I for sure want to try that after I've been tailgating and drinking, for
Yeah.
sure. That's going to soak up all the
All
alcohol.
the alcohol.
If you're a vegan, they've also got vegan vegetable summer rolls. So I'm really excited to see a bigger variety beyond just the basics of hot dogs, hamburgers, chicken nuggets, popcorn, that kind of thing. And then if you haven't already seen, Spinato's is now going to be selling their pizza there. My boys love Scoop Wells, the dough bar where you get the little scoops of like cookie dough. I'm not really a big fan of it, but they love it. And then they've got Barrio Queen, they've got Kaizen, I think that's how you pronounce it. They've got gluten-free California rolls, poke bowls, all that kind of fun stuff. So definitely a lot of new stuff, and I'm excited to hear from everybody when you go to the game on Saturday or in the next week or so. What did you try and what did you think of it?
Yeah, I was looking at all of those choices myself. I'm glad that you talked about where you could find some of them, but there's a woman I follow on Twitter who I happened to interview yesterday, Gab Gowdy from FanDuel, and she posts the craziest food photos from all of the stadiums that she visits, any of the events that she's at. And they're mostly hot dogs with crazy toppings.
Right,
And
like
I
the
know that,
Durex.
yeah, and there are a few hot dogs like that that I saw on the list that I'm actually looking forward to trying as well. So you should be seeing some photos from us throughout the season.
Oh, that is going to be part of my mission at games this year, is to find the new food and get photos of it and try it and make sure the people around me try it. So
I think that's a great mission. And then we can recap and you can tell us what you thought.
absolutely. So
Okay, we got to add to our workout routine though.
yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Story number two has to do with Larry Fitzgerald and the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Yes. So a good friend of mine, Vicky Fiorelli, works at Make-A-Wish Arizona, which, if you didn't know, was founded here in Arizona back in 1980. And they had an amazing wish that they granted just recently. It definitely is something that's close to my heart and my husband's heart. My husband had a brain tumor when he was
Wow.
19. And my friend Vicky had told us when we saw her last week that they were going to do this wish in Flagstaff. Well, there is a young man. His name is Steven. His nickname is Buddha. And he lives in Flagstaff, and he unfortunately discovered that he had a brain tumor.
Mm.
So he was able to ask for a wish, and he said, "No way, I don't want it for me. I want to do it for someone else." So what they were able to do is, because he's on a football team and he has had concussions in the past, even though those are not correlated with the brain tumor, he wanted to have specialized helmets made for everybody on his football team to help
Oh,
keep them safe. And Larry, as we know, is just an amazing human. His foundation was able to pay for all of the helmets. And there's a
wow.
really cool design that was designed on the back of the helmet by Steven. He has loved Larry for forever. So this is really a nice, like, awesome feel good story. And I'm so happy to see that Larry is continuing to make such a great impression on the Valley with all the things that he's doing for others. So if you haven't seen the story, check it out on ABC 15. They've got what is it, Uplifting Arizona. And I believe the Flagstaff newspaper did an article on it too.
That is so good. That is a great feel-good story for sure. I just love how the Make-A-Wish Foundation was able to partner with Larry's foundation to make this happen because surely the Make-A-Wish Foundation probably could have handled it themselves through some generic route like Rydell or something like that, but instead they bring in another local foundation related to football and make it all make sense. I love that.
It's all good, positive news for Arizona all around.
All
And
around.
outside of Phoenix, because we are the Arizona Cardinals. So let's honor all the cities that are big Cardinals fans.
Such a good point.
Mhm.
Story number three is like not necessarily good news, but it's something that's being talked about. It's not just in Arizona, it's being talked about nationally. And I don't necessarily think that it's fair, but why don't you go ahead with story number three?
So I hate to say that I sometimes uh, will check out some of the clickbait, but this one I had to just read because there's an opinion article online where a guy is pretty much saying that Marvin Harrison Jr., the talk about him being rookie of the year should be like stopped, and he only thinks of himself, and all the stuff with the combine and the Ohio State alumni stuff, and the whole taking the number 18 jersey away from another player. This writer thinks that, this guy is just all about himself and he's not going to really give as much to the Cardinals as we all expect from him. And personally, I feel as though, as you and I were talking, these young guys in college, this whole NIL situation and agents and all that kind of stuff, it is hard to manage and navigate. And so obviously, because there is no official jersey right now, people are kind of stressed out about that. But I think in the end, we need to stop finding the negative things and remember that we are so excited to have Marvin Harrison Jr. on our team. He has already shown us from training camp, he's going to be amazing. So let's, stay positive. Let's cheer him on and let's stop with all this negative talk.
I agree. You think about it and realize that these kids don't have any idea how high their star is going to soar. And how can we expect them to make a financial decision before they even have this information? So it's a very sticky situation. I'm sure they're going to work it out. I totally agree with you that we should just be supporting him as a player. He's a person who
Mhm.
has decisions to make for himself and for his life.
Right.
And beyond that, the combine nonsense is so silly because the combine is these players' last chance to showcase their skills. if you're going to be within the top 3, 5, maybe even 10, I don't know that it's worth going out there and blowing out your knee on a 40-yard run or whatever.
We've seen them prove themselves on the field. So it's not
Exactly.
where we're going to sit there and time that 40-yard dash and say, oh, maybe we shouldn't draft him. I mean,
100%. It's not about being too good for the combine. It's about protecting your body and protecting the investment of the team that you're going to. So I'm behind him. I support him. Imagine if it was you or your child, how differently you would probably feel. I
Mhm.
don't know.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, I would say just try to have an open mind and be positive. And as our Arizona Cardinal fans, let's not spread this stuff. Let's not share these stupid clickbait articles. I don't know if anybody saw that stupid one about Kyler Murray and his girlfriend being pregnant with triplets. That's a bunch of bull too. Please don't share that stuff, you guys. It's not true. It's not legit. And it's not good positivity and karma for our Cardinals.
That was so well said, Charlotte. Thank you so much for giving us those stories. Do you have anything else you want to throw out there that's uplifting or positive that may have flew on your radar before you came in? Or are you good?
I think I'm good. I think I'm good. I'm super excited to hear about everybody's experience at the preseason game this weekend.
Me too. Unfortunately, I cannot attend, and you have another commitment as well. But we will be getting insight from friends, family, and of course, our favorite beat reporters that will be at Saturday's game. How exciting!
Yay.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Charlotte. We will catch you next week.
All right, sounds good.
Wasn't that great? Such a good segment. I'm very hungry, number one. My heart is full, number two. And I feel a sense of support for Marvin Harrison Jr., number three. That was great. Thank you, Charlotte. This show is sponsored by Homage, or is it Homage? You be the judge. Regardless, the link is in the description. You can get your very favorite team t-shirts. It doesn't have to be the Cardinals. It can be any team in the NFL, MLB. There are fun pop culture t-shirts, sweatshirts, and other fun swag. Visit the link in the comments, help support the show, and stay stylish. Up next, I'm interviewing Josh Hudson from Club Fantasy Football to talk about Trey McBride and his fantasy impact. I've brought on my good friend, Joshua Hudson. Josh, I can never remember your Twitter handle, so throw it out there for everybody.
It is at the one Hudsonian. That's the as in THE, the number one. My last name, Hudson, IAN, like the Smithsonian, but the Hudsonian. There you
The
go.
one Hudsonian. I
Yeah.
always want to put the one in a different spot.
Most people do. It's okay.
Okay, we got it down. But Josh, you are a co-founder, founder, Club Fantasy, Women of Fantasy Football. And I've been seeing a lot of really great content lately, drumming up conversation. And you pulled me into a specific content piece. Trey McBride versus Mark Andrews. First, how did this come about? I'm assuming it's because they're high on your radar. Just get right into it.
So I've been talking with one of our new contributors and kind of tossing around some ideas to do some more like engagement style posts. And I was like, well, what if we just start kind of looking at ADP? Because that's always a very common theme. It's like, why would I take this person if I could wait a round or two and take this person? So we kind of, scouring ADPs, we pull from Fantasy Pros and Underdog, where a lot of best ball drafts are going on, and ADP is getting very well shaped. And one that really stood out was exactly that, is Trey McBride heading into his third season. Mark Andrews coming off an injury. They're back-to-back in the tight end rankings. McBride at tight end 3, Mark Andrews at tight end 4. And I said, you know what? I think this would be a really good topic, especially because I have this really talented writer on Club Fantasy that happened to write about both of these tight ends earlier this summer. And I said, you know what? Let's make a post about this and go from there.
A really
And if you didn't
talented
catch the
writer.
drift, Kelly, I'm talking about you.
That's me. Thank you. If you are interested at Club Fantasy, you know what? That is not
FFL.
the URL. Let me give out the
ClubFantasyFFL.com. There you go.
Club Fantasy. You don't want to go. The other one might lead you astray. ClubFantasyFFL.com is where you're going to find articles that I've written, but also a whole look inside of every team in the NFL from all of those talented writers at Club Fantasy and Women of Fantasy Football. I did happen to write about both Trey McBride and Mark Andrews. I just have this love of tight ends. I don't know. It's the most exciting position for me, and it has been for me in fantasy at least the last 5 years. I vividly know that 5 years ago, I decided I was going to try a bully tight end strategy, and I can't quit. I cannot quit it.
It's like a drug, isn't it?
It is. I just feel like it is
It's the
so.
easiest way to get different.
It is the easiest way to get different. And I feel like people uh, don't always recognize the value of tight ends in the sense of they're another receiver on the team and they're becoming more and more utilized. There are two tight end packages all the time now on receiving end, not just even blocking. So I need a drink because I have a lot to say. I'm getting a little sip here. Um, So you asked me, Mark Andrews or Trey McBride, and it is a close one. I am not gonna lie. I love Trey McBride. The man put up almost 900 yards. He didn't even play the entire season. I think his prorated yards was something insane, like 1,125 or something like that.
Yeah,
I need to look it up.
if I'm not mistaken, after Zach Ertz got hurt, Trey McBride had over a 30% target share in the Cardinals offense last year,
And that
which is
is
pretty unreal.
It is pretty unreal. The Cardinals also dealt with Michael Wilson being out three or four games for a neck injury and shoulder injury. He's healthy this season, so that does make a difference. However, when we look at teams, I often compare the Cardinals to the Ravens in the sense of the Ravens have had strong receiving cores, and Mark Andrews doesn't skip a beat. So um, there's not much to say when people throw that argument of, oh, target share. If they've got good chemistry, they've got good chemistry. And if they can
Agreed.
catch the ball, they can catch the ball. Those are the two main things when it comes to the quarterback and the tight end in my mind. Do you agree, disagree?
Oh, 100%. I think anytime that, you're looking at the tight end position, you're looking for that rapport. Quarterbacks traditionally look at tight ends as a safety blanket. It's like, hey, if my downfield receiver is covered, if he doesn't get separation, let me go to my second read. There's my tight end. Boom. There's an easy 8 to 10 yards, right? And then if you have a really good tight end who can actually stretch the field and get those yards after the catch, the way that Trey McBride and Mark Andrews have both proven to be very good at, that's an added bonus. And especially in terms of fantasy football, that's what you're looking for from the position.
Absolutely. So when you ask me who would I choose, I give the slight edge to Mark Andrews, and it's only for a couple reasons. One, because he's my self-proclaimed boyfriend. Two, because he's had more time in the league. He's had more time with Lamar Jackson. They have a trust that's been built going on, I believe, this is the seventh year for Andrews. I think fifth with Lamar. So they've built on some years together. And Trey McBride will have that. It's there. It very, very well could be there right now. I'm just going with what I know versus what I want. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. I mean, and I think there's different ways that you can look at these two as well. You know, when I asked that question to you, it was a really simple one, simply because, again, you wrote articles about both of these players. I
Right.
know how much you cover the Cardinals. You know about the Cardinals. You also have a soft spot in your heart for the Ravens and obviously Mark Andrews. So it was an easy question for me to ask you. But I love the just, the straight up being honest, because anytime you're looking at two players that are comparable and one is less expensive than the other in fantasy drafts, common sense is always take the cheaper guy, right? You're going to get pretty similar production. And when you're looking at best ball drafts right now, they're going within 2 spots of each other. They're tight end 3 and tight end 4, right? McBride is going pick 47 overall. Mark Andrews pick 49 overall. It's really a win-win situation, right? You can't lose with either one. But I find it interesting because one has been in the league a little bit longer. The other one hasn't, right? Trey McBride's only going to win his 3rd season. He hasn't even started a full season yet.
Right.
So there's argument that says we haven't even seen the best of Trey McBride yet. But there's a lot of other factors to take in this season, right? You start looking at, oh, well, when Kyler came back and when Zach Ertz went down, Trey McBride was easily the number 1 guy. Well, then they went and spent a 4th overall pick on arguably the best wide receiver prospect to come out in the last 10 years, right? How does that affect that 30% target share? Could very well, a lot. This Arizona offense with Drew Petzing is a derivative of Stefanski's system in Cleveland. Last year with Joe Flacco mostly in at the quarterback position, 624 pass attempts was an anomaly for them. They're typically in that 480 to 530 range when it comes to pass attempts, right? So if that's kind of a barometer for what Kyler can realistically do this year, now you've got a capped ceiling in a way for Trey McBride, right? You look on the flip side of that with Mark Andrews, it's kind of a similar thing. That Baltimore doesn't always throw the football a ton. The only year that they have, Lamar Jackson only played 12 games. Kind of similar situation in Cleveland last year. They bring in Todd Monken because he can pass the ball. He's going to open up the offense. Well, then they didn't need to pass the ball. So Lamar only threw the ball like 480 times, right? Then, of course, Mark Andrews goes down. But Mark Andrews was still the leading target earner when he was playing. He outpaced Zay Flowers. When you look at comparatively how many targets per game they had over the course of the full season, Zay Flowers did work his way over. I believe he had about 6.7 targets per game, and Andrews about 6.1. Now you get a full season with both of those guys in play, things could open up. But then they said, oh, we're going to go sign Derrick Henry. That doesn't tell me that they want to throw the football 550 times, right? So we're basically looking at the same damn tight end. Yep. Which one would you want in fantasy, right? I want the cheaper guy.
And the cheaper guy is not one of those two, just like we discussed. And I think that's a case of recency bias, which I've talked about on a couple of podcasts. Recency bias on both sides, where Trey McBride is coming off of an amazing season. Give him all the flowers. I am not taking away from it at all. He deserves every bit of recognition. I'm a huge, huge fan. Then recency bias on the Mark Andrews side, injury. All people can think about is he missed from week 11 on. He came back for the playoff game and had 2 targets. So recency bias plays a huge role in how closely these two are coming out in fantasy. In 100%. Real life, as a fan, I'm going to be cheering for Trey McBride. I think the Cardinals have a bright season ahead. I'm very, very excited. You're from a different bird gang, but what is your impression of the Cardinals going into this season?
I think there is a lot of, I don't want to call it hype necessarily, I think there's a lot of intrigue because this is going to be the first time in 2 years that Kyler Murray is expected to play a full season, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the biggest Jonathan Gannon fan. Maybe it's just a bad taste in my mouth from the Super Bowl with the Eagles, but it's not, what's the right word here? I'm fully understanding of the fact that that team played really, really hard for him last year. And I feel like the Cardinals are buying into what Monty Osenford is building and what Jonathan Gannon is feeding them from a coaching perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's a very young team. It's very untested. Kyler's the veteran, so he's going to be expected to be the leader on this team. And that's something, in my opinion, that we haven't really seen from Kyler. Like everything's kind of been handed to him, and now he's got to take a step up. So to me, it's going to be very interesting to see how he responds to that newfound responsibility. I think, again, I think there's a lot to like. They didn't produce a ton on offense last year. Now, whether that's because, Kyler only played half the season, new players kind of adjusting to the offense.
Mm-hmm.
When I went through and I did my stat projections, I believe I only have them penciled in for about 22 passing touchdowns, which is definitely on the lower side. But I'm fully aware that if Kyler is locked in and ready to roll, he could easily be a 28 to 32 passing touchdown type season. A lot of that is going to depend on the growth and maturation of Marvin Harrison Jr., who, by all accounts, and Kelly, I think you can definitely speak to this more so than me, but haven't really heard a lot of camp buzz on Marvin Harrison Jr. A lot of people have been talking up Michael Wilson, and they've been raining compliments on Greg Dortch. But people aren't talking about Marvin Harrison the way that they're talking about Malik Neighbors. And maybe that's just because it's New York media, but I almost feel like he's going to end up being one of these like silent assassin types, and it's just going to come out and like knock the socks off of everybody. And I'm 100% here for it because Marvin Harrison's a Philly kid, so I'm all about it.
I think you're right. There has been, and I think this is fantasy versus real football in play as well. Hyping up Michael Wilson, bringing up his ADP. I've seen it rise and rise and rise.
Yep.
So there is a bit of a machine behind that, I believe. But as far as local news, we've been getting like, the guys will call it the daily dose, and it's just this huge bomb of a pass. Marvin Harrison Jr. ripping it out of the sky, and he's on the other end of the field. It's definitely, I think it's definitely going to be exciting, and maybe it's so obvious that it's not being covered, and the less obvious stories are being covered. The comeback, rehabilitation, health of Michael Wilson ready for this season, and the big story of Greg Dortch taking on a role in the offense. However, he said he doesn't really want to leave special teams. So it'll be interesting to see how the Cardinals balance what the player wants versus what the team needs, and if they can. But when it comes to Marvin Harrison Jr., I think it's just, yeah, he's him. And we don't necessarily need to be blasting it everywhere. Whereas the neighbor's story is like, look at us.
It's the New York media, right? They
Yeah.
need something to latch onto. So they're just going to put every single Malik Neighbors highlight out there because they need all the ticket sales they can get for this season.
Well, if anybody is curious and needs to see their daily fix of Marvin Harrison Jr. catches, you can go all the way back through camp by checking out at Donnie Druin and at Bo Brack, and you will get all of the visuals that you need.
Logging on to Twitter right now.
Right now. Josh, thank you so much for spending this time with me. And, I'll be seeing you around on the internets.
Absolutely. We'll see you next Wednesday, actually.
Next Wednesday. That's right. Thank you again so much for popping in, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Thanks, Kelly. Appreciate it.
Bye. I hope you really enjoyed today's show. It was something new. I'm really excited about it. Let us know what you think about the new format in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, You can watch us on YouTube. You can listen on any of your favorite podcast platforms, which I know most of you do. Until then, see you next week. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow The Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.